Hey, hello, welcome back to my channel. Yes, that is still my Christmas tree up in the background and it's in the middle of January, but you know, it's been rough around here. Today in this video, we're gonna do two things. I want to talk to you guys about finishing my second fantasy novel and my thoughts and my feelings on that, but specifically, I want to talk about a few of the things that I think I did well in plotting and drafting this story, as well as some of the things I think I need to improve on in my next draft for this story or just for my future projects in general. And then the other thing I want to do in this video is take you guys along with me to go to the bookstore. And I felt like putting these two things together in one video made the most sense because the three books that I want to go to the bookstore and get have something to do with the second fantasy project that I'm going to talk about today. And this project that I am talking about is Project Burning Roses. We're about to head out. I have to run to the store to drop off these I have to run to the post office to drop off these boxes right there. And we're going to pretend that they weren't Christmas gifts that are a month late. We're going to go to the bookstore and I want to dive a little bit deeper into everything that I want to talk about today. Specifically, the things that I am going to be talking about with my story is story structure, the main plot and subplots, my characters and character motivations, the magic system, world building, and there's one other thing that I can't think of at the moment. I'm going to talk about those things plus one other thing. So let's get downstairs and get this story, this vlog, whatever this is gonna be, let's get this going. I am about to leave. I'm sitting on the floor about to walk out the door and you are currently sitting on all of the boxes that I need to take to the post office. Before we get going, I do want to give you guys a little more specifics about what exactly I'm going to the bookstore for, and then to give you an overview of the story, my word count. The last time I went to the bookstore, which was probably about a month ago, I went with one of my friends. I found 3 books there that I really liked. They're all non-fiction, but they are about plants and about real plants that are in my area. And if you've been in any part of my journey writing Project Burning Roses, you'll know that that story primarily takes place in a swamp in a very hot and humid area, which is a lot of like where I live. I wanted the setting of my story to be what I'm familiar with this story. So a hot tropical type environment with a lot of plants and animals that live in like a swampy type area, and then just maybe tweak them to make them more magical or fantastical. I found these 3 books. One of them is a beautiful illustrated book that is probably going to be very expensive, but it's okay. It's worth it. This book has very beautiful details, beautiful pictures about animals as well as the different kinds of plants. And it went into huge detail about all of these plants. So I'm hoping, even though I went to this bookstore about a month ago, I'm hoping that these books are still there because this bookstore does rotate its shelves regularly to keep everything current, but I'm hoping that book is still there. And then there's another book that was there and it was about killer plants, so plants that are poisonous. And I thought that that book would be very educational in my fantasy world because a lot of the plants and the things in the world are going to be deadly. So I would like to base those types of plants and animals and things like that off of things that are real, that are in our world, but then just tweak them to make them a little less real. If that makes any sense, make it more magical. And then the third book I'm really excited for too, and that book is specific to my region and it's actually written by a Georgia native from what I remember. I think he teaches or used to teach at one of the colleges in Georgia, and it's about the swamplands and about the wetlands in the south part of Georgia. And I wanted this book because it had, from memory, if I'm remembering correctly, it had actual photographs in it, and I think that would be really cool to at least look at a real picture of the swamplands and wetlands. I know I can Google a picture and look at it, but I don't know, there's just something about that that really captivated me and I wanted to get it for research for my story. Hopefully I can use those 3 stories to help enhance my writing and enhance my story. Let me just quickly talk about my story story, I have been working on it since 2022. It was a new little seed idea that I got about a year ago, and I plotted and wrote the first draft of that story, and it's about a girl and her brother. They've been corresponding for a while, and he got a job at the castle, so he left where they were, which was at their military academy, to go to work at the castle. So they've been corresponding by letter for several months, and then all of a sudden he stopped, I almost said emailing, but he stopped writing her letters back. Every single letter that she had ever written him returned back to her. So when she confronted everybody about it and was confused, nobody was giving her an answer, so she set out to go find her brother herself. And then we have a wild adventure in Swamplands. The ending word count ended up being 68,371 words, which is the most words that I've ever written in a novel ever, without like scrapping and rewriting. So oh shit, as I kick stuff. Just another brief second, and then we're going to get going. No, we're gonna talk about this later because we gotta get going. I just made it to kind of around where the bookstore is, and there's a little tea shop that I want to go to as well. I need to go find the meter to pay to bark. I want to give you guys a little bit more discussion about some of the things that I liked about my first draft with the second fantasy novel, and I want to give you guys one thing that I think I need to improve on. But let me go find this meter and pay before I get a ticket, because they are wild around here, folks. Hang on. I wanted to film myself driving through the squares because I thought that was going to be really nice and fun content for you guys. I totally forgot that they were filming a movie. So traffic is crazy. They're also doing construction. I was like gripping the steering wheel, and I did not have time to vlog me driving through the squares. So I'm just gonna get footage a little bit later on for you guys, just walking around the squares. It's so pretty out. It's like 75 degrees. I could not ask for better weather today. Before we go book shopping, actual book shopping in this little indie bookstore, let me talk about the timeline of this story and how I think the timeline was okay for certain things, but then how some of it really wasn't the best. It took me from about February of 2022 to the first week in January of 2023 to plot and write the first draft of this story. Now, the plotting phase, I would say, took me about 3 months to do, and to me, that was the perfect amount of time. I think it was great with this project, especially with how my writing was at the time, and I was figuring out what plotting methods worked the best for me. Did I like bullet point method? I also did the 3-act 9 block 27 chapter structure outline. I jotted down some notes. I did a little bit of pantsing for a little bit of time there. It was great. It was solid, especially trying to figure out my plotting style and what worked and what didn't. I think what I was most disappointed in with myself with this story was how long it took me to write the first draft. I did not want it to take me 7 months to write this first draft. I started writing the first draft of this back in May of 2022. I had a deadline that I wanted to finish it by the end of 2022 in December, and that didn't happen. And then I ended up pushing that off until the first week in January of 2023. It took me a lot longer than I wanted it to write this first draft. Really, it was just lack of time management on my part and putting other things first instead of my novel. I think a lot also that it had to deal with is when I originally went into writing the first draft of this story, my plotting wasn't the best, so I took time in between drafting chapters to re-outline what I wanted to happen for the next few chapters. I think that was pretty solid. I liked the idea of having a more vague outline, and then as I was doing the writing, plotting a little bit ahead and then writing those out. I liked that, but that wasn't what I thought was going to happen. And I think that's why it took me 7 months to write this first draft versus writing it a little bit quicker. I wanted to write this first draft a little bit quicker, and then I wrote my first project, which was Project Brina, and I think it took me about 6 months to write that story. I think it was 6 months. And to me, that's just too long to write a first draft. The idea in my head is to write the first draft, I don't want to say as quickly as possible, but to keep like the ideas fresh and to keep the story going, and you know, just to get that story written. I would like to write it at a quicker pace. So then once I have all the ideas written out, then I can go back and then spend a little bit more time revising the world, working on the characters and the magic system, reconstructing it, and then producing a second draft that could take a little bit more time. That's ideal, and that has not yet happened yet with these two projects that I've worked on in the past. But hopefully now that I have realized that that's an issue, I can fix that for this next project that I'm working on and try and tweak how I'm doing things to make it a little more effective for working on this next project. That's just kind of in general with the timeline with this story. But I want to talk about one thing that I'm proud of drafting this story. And I'm pretty proud of the world building of this story and the setting. Is it still a hot mess and absolutely a dumpster fire? Yes, but I can see the potential of the world that I'm trying to create. So the atmosphere that I'm trying to create in this world is a dark, kind of like a damp, eerie type setting, and I feel like I have captured that pretty well. It's not perfect, of course, that's not what I'm saying, but I can see the potential that my world building has. I've spent a good bit of time doing some research on some swamp creatures, mythological swamp creatures, that's what I'm trying to say, and swamp plants, and applying that into the story. I'm proud of it in the stage it's at for it being a first draft. So we have a good foundation, and then for the next few drafts and the next rounds of edits and everything, hopefully I can start laying the bricks down to make the world building a lot more solid. One thing that I absolutely need to improve on, and this is for future drafts for this project, but then also when I'm plotting another story or all my other future projects that are fantasy projects as well, my magic system was very poor in this project. I went into this project thinking I wanted my characters to have access to magic, but they only had access to the magic when they wielded a certain object, such as like a staff, a sword, a shield, those types of things. And the magic was found within the steel or what it was made of, not necessarily found in the world. Now that I've written the first draft and I'm reflecting on the story as a whole, that doesn't work because I want the magic system and the world to be interconnected. I want it to be intertwined. So thinking back logically on a magic system like that, that just doesn't work, or it doesn't feel right. The magic system for this world should be something along the lines of elemental. When I first started plotting this story and in the first few chapters, my characters were only getting magic and access to the magic when they wielded certain weapons with magical properties. And then towards the end of my project, my characters were basically chanting Latin and bending water. It's not consistent, it's terrible, it's all over the place, but I also don't regret having my magic system be kind of chaotic and not making sense because I allowed myself to experiment with the magic system to find what worked in the world, but then also to find what did not work in the world. Moving forward into the second draft and revisions and all of that, I need to tighten up my magic system, find out exactly how the magic is going to work, and then start building the limitations around that. These were just things that I don't want to say they were necessarily wrong, but they're things that need improvement. When I'm thinking for my next project that I want to work on, if it has magic in it, maybe take a little bit more time to figure out what kind of magic system would best fit this world or best fit the story I'm trying to tell. Those are all the things I wanted to talk about now, but now it's time to go book shopping. I am very excited. Enjoy the ride or the walk, if you will, and let's go get those books that I was telling you about. books. They didn't have one of the 3 books that I wanted, but it's okay. I'm gonna put these in my car and then we're gonna go get tea. But I just wanted you guys to note that just like that, the sun is no longer shining. The church bells were just going off. I tried to get it, but we missed the church bells. I have my tea and a little pastry chocolate type thing, but I want to... There they are. I don't know if you can hear. I had all plans to, I had all plans to sit in this square over here and talk to you guys about the next step in the vlogs, but there's a lot going on. There's some construction going on over there, cars beeping, so I think I'm just going to get a little bit more b-roll for you guys, and then we're gonna mosey on home so I can finish telling you guys what I think I did good and what I don't think I did well, or what needs improvement for the next draft or for the next stories. I ended up getting Asher's Georgia Peach tea because that seemed fair. Let's just walk around for a bit in the square since I technically have my spot until like 2:30 and it's only like 1. I think there's just gonna be too much outside noise for a good piece of vlog footage of me talking out in public. So I'm squatted down on the ground now, but we're going to just enjoy the b-roll, okay?
Killing time, Friday night. Found a photograph of us without cares and worn out clothes. Doesn't seem so long ago. Now I'm just sitting here bored at home, and it really got me thinking of the times we took off on the road. I can't remember where we headed that night. We were cruising around town in Memphis, running the lights. I just know how it felt. I won't forget that. Windows down and open top.
Oh, I'm vlogging. Like, yeah, you're fine. There's no picture. But thank you.
Been 'cause don't I miss you and all those things we did back then. Way back then.
I know I already gave one car update, but there's traffic on the way home, so I'm going to talk to you guys for about 10 minutes and hopefully traffic will kind of clear up. Let me give you guys the next 2 things for things that I did well and what I think I need to improve on for the next draft. You look a little dark. Hang on. Now it might be too bright. The thing that I think I need to improve on next is character motivations. I went into this story without a lot of character motivations for all of my characters. I think my main character had a few character motivations. I mean, obviously she had one. She wanted to find her brother. Oh, someone just texted me. But to be honest, I don't think my characters had enough motivations to keep them going. Or if my characters did have motivations, I felt like my characters had the same motivations. So everybody would do things for revenge or everybody would do things for love. And that's not realistic. Realistically, everybody has motives, but those motives are different. You know, what motivates me to do something might not be the same motivations for you to do something. The next time I am working through this project or plotting another story, I think I need to understand what my characters' motivations are. And I think I need to get at least 1 or 2 character motivations for each of my characters. I want them to have more than just 2, but To start with, to write the first draft of my stories, I need to have at least 1 or 2 character motivations. And I think this also contributed to why it took me so long to write the first draft. I would write my characters into a corner and I couldn't really get them out of it because I wasn't sure what their motivations were. I wasn't sure if, oh, would this character do this? Would this be something that this character did? And why would they do the things that they did? The lack of character motivations also contributed to why it took me so long to write this first draft. In the future, I want to take my time with creating strong character motivations, so then writing a first draft might also be a little bit easier. And now, one thing that I think I kicked butt with this story, with this first draft, with this second fantasy project, I think I did an amazing job with the subplots. So it's not perfect by any means, and I think they all need to be toned up. They need to be fine-tuned. I need to narrow it down to what I think would be best for the story. But compared to my first story that I ever wrote, any subplot I thought of, I threw in there. Anything that I thought could be a potential subplot was tossed in there. But that created so many issues that I couldn't even tell you what my main plot is because there's so much going on. That was something that I had told myself going into this story, that I didn't want to spend too much time on subplots or creating so many subplots, and I also didn't want to just throw out any subplot there possibly could be that I could think of. Even though, yes, I don't think I had as many subplots as the story needs, and it will get more subplots. They'll be fine-tuned. I'm gonna fix them up and everything. But I think because my lack of subplots also it created a more difficult time for me to continuously write. So I need to find a good balance between having too many subplots and then not having enough. With this story, I was on the side where I didn't have enough, which is fine. I would prefer to not have enough, but I was pleased with not having as many subplots with this story as I had in my previous draft. So I've talked for about 5 minutes or so. I don't think traffic is going to slow down, so we're just gonna mosey on that way. Do you know that feeling after you've been out all day wearing jeans and you change into yoga pants or something more comfortable? It's just a feeling. It just makes you so happy and comfortable. That's my current status right now. This is gonna be the last little mini update, little conversation that we're gonna have. If you've been enjoying this so far, let me know down in the comments below. Give the video a thumbs up. Let's do the books first, just because I feel like I've been stringing you guys along with the books and the book haul for far too long. So I ended up getting 4 books. 2 out of the 3 books that I wanted for my project to help with Burning Roses, Project Burning Roses. Only 2 of the 3 books were there. I could not find the 3rd book, and because I didn't remember the exact name of the book, I did not ask for assistance or anything. I did find 2 of the 3 books. One of them that I was telling you guys was going to be very expensive, and it was, but I was expecting it to be expensive. I'm really excited for this one. So it's How to Read the Wilderness, an illustrated guide to North America flora and fauna, and it's by, I think, many people. It's a chronicle book. It's a nature study guide, or nature study guild, excuse me. Hello, words. This is what it looks like. Here's the front, and then that's the spine, and it's beautiful. Let me just flip to a random page in here, but this is what we've got going on. And they have literally everything in it. Identifying selected ferns with divided and undivided blades, whatever that means. And then it talks about mammals and birds. I feel like it's going to really help the story, and then also give me a better idea of what kind of animals and plants I should put in this book. Not in this book, in my project. And then the other one they had is the Book of Killer Plants. It's a field guide to nature's deadliest creations by Kit Carlson. The author has a PhD. Oh, here it says, Dr. Kit Carlson is the chair of the Department of Biology at Madison College and has been a botany professor for nearly 2 decades. They definitely know their stuff about plants. And this one also has some really pretty pictures in it for all of the killer plants, because usually killer plants are the ones that look beautiful. Maybe not necessarily using these plants in particular, but basing my fantasy plants off of this stuff. I feel like this is good to know. I have a funny story, and I knew that this was going to be a topic of discussion when I checked out, just because right? I mean, it's very interesting. A young woman going to get a book on killer plants and reading the wilderness. It's a little sketch, right? And then they didn't have the third book I wanted, which that probably would have been another topic, but it was funny. So I checked out these two along with the other two books I'm going to talk about in a second. When I checked these two books out, the lady that was checking me out, she goes, "Oh, plants and wilderness, huh?" And I just said, "Yes, ma'am." So now the other two books I got are not going to be used as guides for the Project Burning Roses that I was talking about. So we're gonna put these off to the side for a second. And because I told myself I was gonna get 3 books, but then they only had 2 of the 3 books I wanted, I went ahead and got 4. Not 4 more, 4 total. The next one I got is East African Folk Tales by Jake Jackson. I'm pretty excited about expanding my knowledge into other folklore and other mythology that I know nothing about. And then the last book is a fantasy because of course, and I'm really excited for this one. I had not heard of it, like picking this book up. I just saw the side of it, which this is the side, and it's called Valiant Ladies by Melissa Gray. I loved the spine is what really captured my attention. This is the cover. And I am so game. So those were all the books that I got from the bookstore, and I'm super excited for all 4 of these. I know the 2 nonfiction books that I want to read to kind of help me with my story, with like better with my world, to improve my world building. I don't know when I'm gonna get to those. I would like to get to them fairly soon, just so for the next round of edits and working on draft 2, I can have a little bit more knowledge about certain things. So for the final little update that I want to give you guys that has to do with my project, I want to talk to you guys about story structure. Holy shit, we're changing the lighting. Wow, it looks like someone like clawed my face. I'm so damn tall. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about as I am unloading the groceries that I got, I want to talk about story structure. I more along the lines have a neutral feeling about the story structure for this project and where it sits. So story structure, I know throughout my whole vlogging process, I talked about that I thought my pacing was off throughout the entire story. And I wasn't necessarily wrong with that. I do think the first part of the story, Act 1, is entirely too long. And that was an issue I had with my previous project. The first story I ever wrote, I had a very big pacing issue where the first act was, I felt like 60% of the story, and then like 30% was Act 2, and then maybe 10% was Act 3. I think that adds up to 100%. But with this story, I don't think the pacing was as off as I thought it was. The pacing is off, yes, but it's not as whack as I thought it was. My first act is still too long. I think, in my opinion, I think I spent a lot of time world building, which is not wrong because I'm telling myself the story, but the world building, I think it took a little too many words to get what I was trying to say and the point across. So I think Act 1 was still too long, and then Act 2, I think Act 2 was a pretty decent pace. I think it just needs to be beefed up in the next drafts. But then I think for Act 3, I think could be a little bit longer, so I have enough time to build up to what I'm wanting, the end goal, but then also I think to tie up some of those subplots. And that stuff is just going to come at the more drafts I write and the more I work on the story and become more familiar with it. Overall, yes, my pacing was off, but it's fine for now. It's fine for a first draft. I think I nailed the beats pretty solid. So if you follow Save the Cat, or if you've ever read Save the Cat, it talks about beats and it gives you a beat sheet. So when certain things in the story should happen, understanding that and then applying it to my story, it feels pretty well balanced. I think there are some beats that may happen too soon or too late or aren't ramped up up as much as they need to be. But I think overall for a first draft, it's fine. Because I spent a lot of time reading writing craft books, and when I would watch movies and read novels, not necessarily writing craft books, taking all of that into account and applying that to this story, I think it made the structure of the novel a lot better and a lot stronger. And I can see a flow with the story. My character, you know, she sets out on a mission and she has her character arc that she needs to accomplish or get through, as well as some of the other characters. They have some holes and they've got some baggage too. And you can see, at least to me, I can tell that there is some bare bones and some surface things that are good, are decent, are well enough to expand on. So I think the flow of the story works pretty well. I know you're just like going off of my word and I'm not really giving you guys examples, but hopefully when I have a second or a third draft done, I can compare what my first draft looked like pull something from that and then compare it to a later draft. But right now I don't have any of that stuff available for you or me. You just have to go by my word. And I wouldn't lie about that. If I thought it was garbage, I would tell you that I thought it was garbage. Which overall, I still think the draft one is garbage, but it's garbage that has potential. When I say that my story structure has improved from the last story I wrote to this story, I'm not saying it's perfect. By absolutely no means is this story perfect. But what I wanted to do is think about the pros and the cons, the things that I think I did well and the things that I think I didn't execute the best. So things that needed improvement. And I wanted to sit down and talk to you guys about it. Well, we went on an adventure and talked about it. So hopefully you still got the same effect. But I wanted to discuss all of that with you guys because I feel like transparency is important. And then also admitting things that need to improve. And because I am not an expert and I know that with each story, my writing is growing. And with each story, I can do things a little bit differently and maybe a little bit quicker. So since I have 2 novels written under my belt, I feel like I have a much better understanding of my writing style, my writing tools, and my level of writing now than I did when I first started back on this journey back in 2020. So I wanted to share that with you guys and take you along on my adventure going book shopping. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope putting these 2 things together were not confusing. I hope you still understood the point of this video and enjoyed the ride. That is all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know how your projects are going. If you're reading anything currently, let me know how that read is going, what book it is. Just let me know all the things. I hope your year is going well so far. Best of luck writing, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.